Officially, there never was a clone rebellion on Kamino.
The clone troopers were a marvel of engineering and biological manipulation in the Star Wars universe, being able to easily outthink and outgun just about any opponent, whether it be mass-produced or even highly intelligent and capable battle droids, or even a life form trained in the arts of combat for many years. The clones were so instrumental to Palpatine's rise that it was absolutely essential for him to keep them under his control long term. They were incredibly expensive, however, and due to their rapid aging, they were gradually becoming less and less effective, but just as costly to maintain as regular humans. Well, despite not being a good sign for the clones, Palpatine still intended to use them until they were worthless and only served to be an effective display of power in line with the Tarkin doctrine. The true reason that Palpatine finally decided on cutting off the clones and never using soldiers like them again is a devastating and brutal war which threatened to topple Palpatine's dominance over the narrative that he was a dedicated and protective emperor. This is the horrific story of the anti-troopers and the Kaminoan efforts to rebel against their former client. This is Kamino's darkest day. Once the Galactic Empire had been formed, Palpatine knew, especially after having a falling out with the Kaminoan leader Lama Su, he would need a much firmer hold over the cloning facilities on Kamino to ensure the long-term security of his empire's military. Dispatching several squads of clones, Palpatine took Kamino by force, claiming almost all of the cloning facilities as Imperial property, causing a deep hatred in the few Kaminoans who were able to keep their equipment. During this time, Palpatine also began using a new and innovative cloning technology which could breed and train new Imperial troopers within 1 year, as opposed to the 10 that the older Kaminoan clones needed. He began using these as his primary method on Coruscant, leading to more lax deployment of forces on Kamino. Using this to their advantage, the remaining Kaminoans spent the better part of a decade designing, revising, improving, and then finally creating a new type of clone trooper, one which grew faster and was significantly more intelligent, the anti-trooper. Not only were these statistically superior to their earlier counterparts, but they were fiercely loyal to their Kaminoan breeders, since all directives to follow Palpatine or his empire as an authority were completely removed from their programming. Although these clones were still based on Jango Fett's original DNA sample, they had been changed to such a degree that they were unrecognizable in skill to regular clones, with them all being trained to be jetpack troopers in order to confuse and disorient their enemies, wore Phase 1 armor, and had both training as expert snipers and infantry troops, meaning that using almost any weapon they were far more effective and deadly. Just in case the Empire intended to overpower their rebellion through raw numbers or a hidden ace up their sleeve, the Kaminoans also trained their own ARC troopers known as the Rail class Advanced Recon Commandos. Their primary purpose was to protect young clones still undergoing training, but they would also serve as lethal additions to the main force, supporting them and dominating any ranged or close-up engagements. The crazy thing to note here is that the Imperial clones on Kamino had no idea that any of this was happening. They were just living their day-to-day lives for years, walking past and talking to people who they had no idea were orchestrating their downfall. Although we don't know exactly how, possibly due to a training incident catching attention or being caught in some kind of secret conversation, the Empire was alerted to the Kaminoans' plans and sprung an offensive on them at once, forcing them to begin the war before they were fully ready, putting them at an immediate disadvantage. In order to ensure the absolute decimation of the little militia, Palpatine commissioned Boba Fett himself, who grew up on the planet, to lead the veteran 501st Legion into battle to eliminate the clones and force the Kaminoans to become loyal to Palpatine or face certain death. Now, in case you don't know, this is a big deal. Obviously, the 501st were also born and raised in the Kaminoan facilities, and they know the place very well, but they were one of, if not the most experienced Legion in the Imperial Army, having fought endless battles under Anakin Skywalker in the Clone Wars. They were so battle-hardened as well as deadly accurate that Darth Vader had assigned them as his personal unit, with the original members being called Vader's Fist, symbolizing that his will extended through the troopers and that they were just as merciless and brutal as their master was. Throughout the early days of the Empire, the 501st was sent on many high-level covert operations, which were almost always blacklisted from being shared with the politicians who served under or sometimes opposed Palpatine, ensuring that he could get away with virtually any dirty acts he wished without consequence in the slightest form. It was a good arrangement for the troops. Do what you're told and you'll get taken care of. But when it came to killing their own brothers, those were orders that they didn't take quite so easily.
To this day, I can't understand what motivated our creators to rise up against us. Had they gone mad? Had we failed them in some way? In the end, it really didn't matter. The Kaminoans had to be stopped, and their army of treacherous gene cousins destroyed. The first few kills were the hardest. After all, it's hard not to get a little spooked when the enemy screams with your voice. But we shook it off and did our job. Most of the troopers never knew about Kamino. Like a lot of things in the Empire, it never really happened.
The battle was brutal and at some points very close to success and failure on both sides. Unfortunately for the Kaminoans, Boba Fett knew the clones inside and out, and equipped with his own jetpack, he was able to soar across the battlefield and gun down countless troopers, as well as burning them to a crisp with his flamethrower. He led a small squad through the cloning chambers to retrieve the genetic material that the cloners had used in order to make their anti-troopers, and then sent it through an Imperial shuttle to a safe location, or his men continued their slaughter. This one simple action ensured that the Empire would be able to continue to produce the same clones as the Kaminoans from both the Clone Wars and the current battle, securing the long-term stability of the military. Sticking primarily to the higher platforms, the anti-troopers attempted to snipe and burst down volleys of plasma to stall the assault of the Imperials, but this was to no avail as Boba assisted the clones in taking out some key gunners, opening the space to continue their storming of the facilities. In a truly sickening display of obedience, one that pulled at the heartstrings of even the most loyal clones, they destroyed the life support systems which were providing life and stability to untrained infant clones, ending all of their lives at once in a cruel detonation. This is around the time where the Rail-class Advanced Recon Commandos arrived on the battlefield, and although they temporarily pushed back Boba Fett and his squad, taking down many clones on the way, they were eventually overcome by raw firepower and gunned down in cold blood. Realizing that they were doomed and that their rebellion was falling apart, the Kaminoan cloning masters boarded several LA-80s in an attempt to flee as their fiercely devoted ARC troopers formed in a line to block blaster fire, all falling in the process, but the Kaminoans were just about to take off thanks to their efforts. It was then that a group of Imperial clone troopers with a high-impact explosives set arrived, destroying the LA-80s before they could properly ascend and escape, killing all of the cloning masters who hadn't already given in and joined the Empire. When Boba Fett returning to Palpatine's goons for his payment, the remaining Imperials proceeded to go through every passageway and blow down every side door, massacring remaining staff and clones who were hiding for their lives. It was due to this battle that Palpatine came to two realizations. One, that the clones could be easily set against him if the Kaminoans under his control deviated even slightly from their jobs, and two, that he lost many men against the Kaminoans that they would be expensive to replace. This led to him slowly approaching the year of the first Death Star's destruction, phasing out the production of clone troopers by replacing them with typical military-style training of natural-born human males and females. Although they tended to be less effective, they were much cheaper, meaning that the Empire could get far more of them for their money's worth. Due to the Tarkin doctrine, this seemed like a natural progression of the Empire's military, going from small but precise and expensive units to large-scale recruitment of weak but cheap men and women who could, by their very numbers alone, convince entire systems to bend their knee to Palpatine. The clones who remained while humans were being trained never got along with their new squad mates, and it was a deeply demoralizing experience for both sides, putting up with unrelatable and insufferable members of the same group. The clones were used to having banter and brotherhood, but the humans were lazy, arrogant, and never cared for anyone but themselves, especially in the heat of battle. Commander Cody, the legendary leader of the 212th Attack Battalion and the dear friend of Jedi Master Obi-Wan Kenobi, also felt this way about the humans, and many years after the failed rebellion, he was stationed on Topoka City to train the Imperial recruits and oversee the garrison on Kamino. He saw firsthand the rapid degradation of accuracy, teamwork, and overall efficiency as the Empire slowly integrated more natural squad members before moving to a no-clone approach. He developed a deep hatred for the naturals, considering them useless, expendable idiots who had no concept of brotherhood or selflessness. He was even willing to swap his entire garrison for one single clone from his glory days in the Clone Wars if he had the choice to pick. Now, this eventual dependence on naturally born humans eventually did lead to major issues, whether it be in making mistakes or with becoming traitors. Yesterday I posted a video detailing how Tarkin's son was killed by Darth Vader, and in it, even some of the most highly trained soldiers turned on Palpatine's second in command. So as the Empire's reign continued, more weak spots arose as the natural-born humans kept letting their emotions override them. So that's everything you need to know about the battle which caused Palpatine to stop using clone troopers and instead change the Imperial military forever. Drop a like on the video if you enjoyed it, smash the subscribe button for more awesome Star Wars content, and check that video out on screen now about Tarkin's son. If you made it this far, drop a thank Mr. Cody in the comments down below.